Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking a little time with me this morning. I just wanted to do kind of a pre-meeting in advance of our upcoming BSA AML training. So let me quick share my screen with you. Okay. You should be able to see my screen now. So like I said, we've got BSA AML training upcoming. So I wanted to take this opportunity to brief you as client-facing employees with some details that you will want to be aware of. Your upcoming training is going to go into each of these topics in further detail, but I hope this presentation gives you a good foundation to start off with. So first, let's talk about the reason for BSA AML regulations. These regulations are in place to create industry standards for client identification purposes. And this is to aid in the identification of global money laundering and terrorist financing. So if we look at the timeline that I've put together here, in 1970, the Bank Secrecy Act was passed, and this established requirements for record keeping and reporting by private individuals, banks, and other financial institutions. Then in 1986, the Money Laundering Control Act was established to augment the BSA's effectiveness by adding additional requirements and, probably most importantly, imposing criminal liability to a person or a financial institution that knowingly assists in the laundering of money or that structures transactions to avoid reporting them. Then in 2001, the U.S. Patriot Act expanded AML program requirements even further and increased civil and criminal penalties for money laundering. So at Gateway, we do have a BSA AML policy in place, and all officers, employees, directors are required to comply with this firm's policy. And I just pulled out some of the key items within the policy that will be covered in your training, and just wanted to go into those with a little detail with you. And those will be compliance with the Customer Identification Program, which you may know as CIP when onboarding new clients, comparison with government sanctions lists, beneficial ownership control person documentation, and then finally reporting suspicious activity. So let's start with the Customer Identification Program, or as I mentioned, we know it as CIP. When onboarding new clients to Gateway, we are required to gather the following information to verify a person's identity. And these persons could be grantors, beneficiaries, beneficial owners, control persons. What you're going to gather for those identifications are date of birth, address, driver's license number, social security number or a taxpayer ID, and a photo identification. And most of this information can be gathered by obtaining a scan of the client's current driver's license and obtaining a signed Form W-9 for the client. And both of these pieces will be needed for the new account opening, so you'll have most of the information that you need in hand. If the person seems evasive in providing the necessary documentation, or they're flat out refusing to provide it, you will need to have a conversation with the Chief Compliance Officer sooner rather than later to determine what the next steps are. Note that we will not, if we do not move forward with the account opening, we still have a responsibility to report those interactions. So again, work with the Chief Compliance Officer and compile a list of all your written documentation. Okay, another step in the pre-acceptance process is utilizing the Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC, online search tool to check the person or business entity's information against the online sanctions lists. This is to determine if the person or business entity appears on any list of known or suspected terrorist organizations. If you do get a match, immediately contact the Chief Compliance Officer and work with him to determine if the match is valid. If it is valid, then he will report the match to the OFAC compliance hotline. Note that if you do not get a match, but you do have suspicions about moving forward with the account opening, take the time to have a conversation with the Chief Compliance Officer, and then you and him can determine a plan of action. Finally, be sure to fully document in writing initial matches and maintain the documentation on file, even if that match is determined valid. So let's move into beneficial ownership and control persons. I know this is confusing for some folks, so let's go into this in a little bit of a detail. When you're doing the pre-acceptance review of trust accounts that hold corporations and LLCs, it's required to identify all beneficial owners and control persons. you'll need to include the following information on an internal beneficial owner control person form. Beneficial owners owning at least 25% of the company must be identified. And then if you have an entity that owns at least 20% of the company, you will need to drill down to the persons or persons that own the entity. Always remember that you need to continue until you're reaching a person or persons. The entity itself cannot be listed as the beneficial owner. And then identify any control persons. And I know this is where the confusion comes in. A control person may not own 25% or more of the company. They might own 0% of the company, but they may have significant control of the company by managing, directing, and making key business decisions. So it's important to identify those individuals and include them in that reporting. And then finally, an OFAC search must be completed for all beneficial owners and control persons that are identified. Finally, let's talk about suspicious reporting. Suspicious activity reporting is required. If something seems suspicious, report it immediately to management and/or the chief compliance officer. Know that these reports must remain confidential. Do not disclose to anyone inside or outside of the firm other than the appropriate parties that you have made a suspicious activity report or any details of that report. Management may ask you for additional questions in determining if suspicious activity report should be filed with FinCEN. If warranted, management will take the lead in filing the SAR report for Gateway Trust. Remember to keep an open line of communication with management and/or the chief compliance officer to ensure as a firm we are following all necessary BSA AML requirements. This has been an area of focus in recent Division of Banking exams, so we want to make sure that we are following policy and documenting appropriately. In preparation of your upcoming training, I hope you found that this overview was helpful. You will receive an email in the next few days outlining how to log on for your training and when the training must be completed by. After completing your training, if you have any outstanding questions regarding BSA, AML, policies and regulations, please reach out to the Chief Compliance Officer for additional clarity. Again, I hope this was helpful, and please let us know if you have any questions going forward. Thank you.